Hi everyone, I am about to speak with author Maryann McFadden, and her book, which is coming out this week, is called The Cemetery Keeper's Wife. And it was such a good book. Oh my gosh, it's historical fiction, and she doesn't live too far from here either. I'm in Pennsylvania, she's in Jersey. It's historical fiction about this woman named Tillie Smith, and about all the things surrounding. She's like got this big mystery surrounding her death, and she did so much research for this book. It was really good. Two points of view, one from the past, one from the present. It was so good. So everybody, here is Maryann.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited because I am speaking with author Maryann McFadden, and we're talking about her newest book that is out this week called The Cemetery Keeper's Wife. Thank you so much, Maryann.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh, what a great book this is. First of all, I love historical fiction. I mean, I'll read almost anything historical fiction, but I fell in love with the main character, Rachel, so much.
Oh, good.
Yeah. This book had me reading and reading and reading. I just couldn't put it down. I mean, it was so good. And I was like, how did she find this story? How did you find this story? I mean, I know you're in New Jersey, but what a great story.
You know, it's funny. This story found me. I moved to Hackettstown. Obviously, this is set in my hometown, Hackettstown, New Jersey. We moved here when I was a little girl from Brooklyn. I'm going to give away my age a little bit here and tell you it was in the mid-'60s. And I was walking over to the river, which was kind of close to our house, and the river borders the town. And there was this beautiful little wooden bridge, so of course I had to cross it, and I found myself in the most beautiful cemetery. And I was not even spooked because it felt like a park. And walking through the cemetery, I was drawn to the highest point. And when I got there, there was this stunning monument to a girl named Tillie Smith who died in 1886. But even as a little girl, reading the words carved into the stone that she literally, quote unquote, died in defense of her honor, and it was erected by an appreciative public, I was captivated. And I'd already begun writing stories. I always wanted to be a writer. So that was the beginning of sort of my growing obsession with Tillie Smith and what happened to her.
Oh, I love, I'm like kind of weird too, because I love cemeteries.
I just,
and I don't know, because I used to walk on my way home from school. I grew up around here. I'm in Pennsylvania. I grew up in Emmaus, and there was a cemetery that I'd have to walk through for a shortcut. And it was like really, really old. Like the stones were in the ground and grass would grow up around them. And I used to stop and like pull the grass away to like read, because I love history, first of all. And it was like always wanted to see the ages, or like how long did they live, or what year. And I'd like imagine like what was it like where they were right here, they must have been around this area. And I don't know, it just I can understand why a story came to you through that, because I felt like that's what I used to do in my head when I would read these different tombstones. And this one, everybody go on her website. I'm going to have the link listed underneath here. And there's a video, and you can see, I mean, you can look up the picture anywhere, but look at the video, because it's so cool the way you did the video with the picture of her statue. I love that.
Oh, thank you. That was a special moment, because when we did that, that was the 132nd anniversary of the murder. And I should say that in this area regionally, Tillie Smith is rather famous. Everyone wants to know what really happened to her that night. But for me, as you know, reading the book, my goal was to find out who she really was, because her trial became like the O.J. Simpson trial of its era in the Victorian age. And she was really forgotten. It became about the sensation of the trial, the convicted murderer, did he or didn't he not really do it? But nobody really knew who she was. And that became my goal. My original title was actually Finding Tillie, but my daughter said to me, Mom, there's Finding Dory, there's Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
That's not going to work. And then I realized my main character, Rachel, she was my vehicle to bring Tillie Smith back to life. So it became, more of her story and the link between the two of them. So The Cemetery Keeper's Wife, I fell in love with the title, and that was it.
I love the I love the title too. I have to say, when I first came across it, I was like, wonder what this is about. Like, I don't know. It just kind of drew me in. And everybody who's looking at the cover while we talk, I really love the cover. And I don't know, there was just something about it that kind of was like, you need to read this book. And what I loved about Rachel was that, how you brought her alive through. I was thinking, I wonder if Maryann felt like Rachel needed to find out what was so special about her, and she needed to find out the truth, and it called her. And I don't want to give away spoilers, so I'm trying to talk around it.
Thanks, I know.
It grew her, that she was willing to give up almost everything to find out because of her own history. I don't know. It was kind of like she was reliving her own life. I'm going to let you talk. You tell me as much as you can about it. How about that? Because I don't want to give anything away.
I will do that. As I said before, my own sort of journey with Tillie Smith began as a little girl. I've had a lifetime of coincidences with this murdered girl, and I knew I always wanted to write a story about her and try to bring her voice back to life. So what I did was, when I created the character Rachel, who marries the cemetery keeper after a very hasty courtship, there's a little mystery there too.
Yes.
And moves into the cemetery, and on the very first day, she discovers the monument. I put her on a similar journey to my own, in that, a lot of her own research and coincidences mirror my own. That said, Rachel's very different from me. She was a tough character for me to write. And the funny thing is, in the beginning, my agent kept saying, I'm not feeling the connection between these two characters. And I struggled. I really struggled with it. But one of the things I was doing was I was putting way too much research into the book, and I needed to streamline the story a little bit. And the local audience wants any little piece of minutia about Tillie Smith possible, but I realized, this is for a global audience. So I'll probably put things on my website that I pulled out of the book. But for Rachel, the truth about Tillie is paramount, because, number one, as a house auctioneer, she was always investigating and sort of getting pulled into the lives of people whose houses she went into and, sorted through all their lifetime of belongings. But then in the cemetery, it became like, wow, each grave that she walks by, there's a story there. There are probably secrets there. And, of course, Tillie's is the ultimate, because she finds out that Tillie was murdered. She ends up in the house of the convicted murderer, which happened to me. And, she feels that there is a sense of destiny going on, which is honestly kind of how I felt, because Tillie Smith became like a mascot at the local university, which was a seminary back when she was killed. They had a Tillie's Cafe. One of the students there recently told me they give out Tillie bucks when you do something where you get extra credit. And it's like, and she was really upset, because she's like, this girl was brutally murdered. But I give that outrage to Rachel, and it becomes her mission to find out the truth. And as you know, at the same time, she sort of gets the courage to face her own truth in life that she's been avoiding.
Yes. And that's the part, with Rachel and Adam is the cemetery keeper, her husband. I love the tension that you put in their marriage. And, you realize as it goes, why exactly with that tension. But in the beginning, it really had me, I was like, she is doing this so well. Like,
good.
I felt myself getting really, involved in their relationship, because it was like, he didn't know what to say to her. She didn't know what to say to him.
Right.
They were just trying to figure. And then they had the family. his family involved,
Mhm.
and it put her in an awkward situation. And I don't know, I really related to that. I think I've had that in my life it must be in somewhere because I just love that
Yeah.
part.
Well,
You know?
it's so tricky to create a relationship, especially a young marriage. You want the characters to be real, you want them to be believable. And Adam and Rachel, as I say in the book, they're different. They're not your typical mid-30s couple. Their lives revolve around dead people, which is, she laughs about it in the beginning. And as she drives into the cemetery with him for the first time, she jokes, well, I don't have to worry about the neighbors liking me. So she's got a little bit of a sense of humor. But, there's that, the two of them are like two kind of wounded souls who find each other.
Yes.
And so it's a different kind of relationship than what you would see in most books with 30-somethings. But I loved these two characters. I really did.
Yeah, I really did too. And I'm just going to say that I loved the ending. I didn't know exactly where you were going to go. And, I teared up at the end, and it was just, and I'm so happy I read it when I did, because I wasn't reading a whole bunch at the moment. And then I was able to really dive into it. And, when I set it down, I was like, oh, it's over, but it's okay.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you.
So I got to take a moment and just breathe it in, and, and the history, like I said, I love the history. And what was interesting is that I didn't look at pictures of Tillie until I was done with the book. Because I read it on my Kindle, and I was like, I kind of saved it because I was like, I don't want to read. I know that if I look this up on Google, all kinds of stuff is going to come up, and I don't want to know yet.
Right.
I just want to take in this story from your eyes, and I didn't want to, have any kind of thought about it other than what you were telling me. And then I did go and look it up, and I was kind of shocked by how she looked, actually. And pictures, people didn't smile. People didn't, you have to get used to that, and when you're getting pictures from the 1800s.
Absolutely,
and but it still was like, it was sad, and I don't know that she was sad, but maybe it was me putting that on her, or but
she had such a hard life. I mean, I've spent, gosh, if I add up all the moments I spent looking at, not just at her photo, but into her eyes, trying to determine, am I interpreting you correctly? Because, it's not, a lot of times when people write a historical novel, they take a little nugget of history and, they create this entire world and all these characters around it. This was a tough one because I tried to stay as faithful to the real story of what was already known about Tillie. And I knew that she had a very, very hard life. Her family was dirt poor. And that photo, that was obviously near the end of her life. And, I could only imagine what she was hoping, what she was dreaming. And, you look at the picture and there's barely the hint of a smile, maybe, because they had to stand there for so long and pretty much hold their breath to have the picture taken,
Right. Well, I want to tell everybody this quote that I picked up in the beginning, and this is a quote, and I didn't even write down, and it's in the very beginning of the book, and I wanted to write down because you quoted somebody, and then I didn't write down the name. So there's no such thing as chance, and what seems to us mere accident springs from the deepest source of destiny. And I've never heard that before, but I went back after I'd read it and reread this quote, and I was like, oh, that was perfect.
Isn't it
so
perfect? When I found that, I was looking for just the right quote because, I gave a speech last week at the university that was the seminary where she was murdered. And, there I was in the front parlors of the very building that she worked in. And it was just this moment, just this very powerful moment for me. And I thought about that quote. And I honestly, I felt like I was really meant to write this book.
Yeah, I was, and I love doing that. I love reading the end and going back because then I get to see how really brilliant you are in the beginning.
Thank you. That is so sweet.
I love doing that. But I want to tell everybody this is not your first book. This is your fourth book.
Yeah.
And when they go on your website, I love the story of how you got published. And if you could just give us like a quick, because it's such a great story. And I just want to give hope to all those authors out there who, are struggling with their first book and how to get it published. And I just thought your story was so beautiful.
Oh, thank you. This was back in 2006 when there really wasn't much in the way of ebooks or print on demand. I think print on demand was brand new.
And indie, any kind of,
all that stuff. So I had finished my first novel, The Richest Season, in 2001, right before 9/11. I almost had an agent represent me, and then everything in the book world changed after 9/11, and this book kind of sat in a closet. Every once in a while I'd pull it out, and I finally gave it to a book club to read, and they just went berserk. And everyone who read the manuscript kept saying, oh my gosh, this book is beautiful. So I decided, at that point I had left journalism, I was selling real estate, but I wanted to write novels. And I decided, well, you know what, if I could sell houses, why can't I sell my own book? Because I was at the point where I needed to get the book out there. So I did it print on demand, and I just went from indie bookstore to indie bookstore. And I actually tell a little of that in my third book, The Book Lover, My Journey. And booksellers went crazy for the book. They became like my biggest champions. And before I knew it, after 6 months, I had sold, which back then is a lot, 3,000 copies. I was a book club pick in 10 states. I was tired, but I contacted agents again because the booksellers were saying to me, everybody's asking when you're going to get your next book out. And I thought, my gosh, I want to write the next book. So I contacted a few agents, and I landed a really good New York agent. She loved the book. Long story short, because it is a long story.
Right.
She sold it at auction to Hyperion, which is still owned by Disney. And it's been translated into other languages. They contracted me to write my next book. The first one became a Target breakout novel. And now the 3 books that have been released, they're all American Bookseller Association indie picks from all the indie booksellers. So if I didn't take that leap of faith and embarrass myself at times, because it wasn't always easy walking into a bookstore and saying, would you read my book? But I talk about a lot of that with my author character in The Book Lover. And just using quotes from one bookseller to another, they knew each other, they started to take a chance on me. And sometimes I look back and think, my God, I really had nerve back then because it wasn't easy. It really wasn't. But if you really believe in your book, it's so much easier to get it out there these days. People should not hesitate because ultimately, my writer friends and I, we've gone through all the upheaval in the book world in the last 6 years. We say to ourselves, number one, our readers just want to read our books.
Right.
Number two, they don't care who puts it out there. If you have readers who love your work, they don't care who puts it out there. If you have to put your book out yourself, do it. But it may become the vehicle to prove to a publisher that, you have an audience. And that was my goal with The Richest Season, to prove I had an audience and to prove I had a worthy book. So
I just love that story. And it so resonated with me because when I started doing this, talking to authors last year, when you just step out in faith, it called me. I was like, I want to talk to authors. I think authors want to talk, and I tell people and they were like, really? Do you think that I'm like, I don't care. Whatever. I'm just going to do it. I don't, I couldn't not do it. Put it that way. I had to try. And, and now I get to talk to authors every single day. And I love, and I get to read their books and I get to promote their books. And it's exactly what I wanted to do because writing it I knew that wasn't my calling. I was a reader, not a writer. And, and us readers, we love writers.
I know. Well, I have my favorites too, believe me. With my second book, one of the biggest thrills of my life was getting a quote, an endorsement on my second book from Anne Rivers Siddons. I don't know if you've ever
Oh,
read her, but she was one of
yeah.
my favorites over the years. Oh my gosh, she's a legend. And so yeah, we have our authors that we're gaga about too. We do.
Oh, yeah, and it's such a, I love being a part of this world. And for women out there everywhere, like I'm finding so many women who are just, like they're still raising their children and they're writing books and they don't know what to do with them. They just feel the calling to write them. And,
Mhm.
you're so inspired. When I read your story, I was like, that is so inspiring. I just want to tell everybody to go on your website. You can read the whole story. And just do it. Just go do it. And, don't listen. If that's what you need to do, go do it.
You really have to believe in yourself. I'm standing in my office right now, and on top of my bookshelf is a big plaque that says "Believe." Hanging from my window above my desk is a little ornament that says "Believe. With faith, all things are possible." And it's
Yes.
like, you just have to keep reminding yourself that there's a reason you feel this way. There's something inside of you that needs to come out, and you've
Right.
got to give expression to it.
Right.
So, we've got to believe in ourselves. But, I think this is kind of like The Richest Season, my first book. I think in life we get very caught up in the day-to-day realities, the busyness of life, a family, a job, etc. And we kind of lose sight of our early dreams. And that's actually what happens in The Richest Season. The three characters, they kind of rediscover who they were when they were young. And I think it's true for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, to the days that I used to, get pennies together to go get a book. Like, if I could only buy one thing, it would have been a book, no matter what, And now I see, I'm flooded. I have so many books and people just hand me books. And I'm like, oh my gosh, who would have thought, when I used to just save every penny to buy a book and now I can give them away, just
How
give them
great
away.
is that?
I love that. I love that more. That's my favorite part is giving the books away. But anyway, thank you so much, Maryann. I mean, I'm so thankful that you got this story out there, and I'm so grateful that I read it, and, it was just amazing. I loved every minute of it.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate this. As authors, you and I were talking earlier about, you write the book and then what? Well, we spend so much time and energy promoting because, we just birthed a book and we need the world to find out about it. And
yes.
And someone like you is just like magic for us because word of mouth like this is truly magic. That's what makes it happen.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm so glad to get to know you. I can't wait for your next one. I mean, who knows? You know where to find me if you need a reader, and, we can get it out. Everybody, this book is available this week. All the links will be listed underneath this. You can just go right on Amazon, hit one click, buy the book. It's so easy. It is. I find myself doing it many times a day. It's incredibly easy. But please go to her website. There are so many great websites out there for authors, and yours is one of them. And I love when they keep them up, and the video is great. Watch the video. I wish I would have watched that there first. So go watch the video and then read the book. And yeah, and we will talk soon. Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Have a great
wonderful day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Everyone, I just want to thank you for listening to Maryann and I. I am so happy that I met her. She is so sweet, and the book is amazing, guys. Cemetery Keeper's Wife. You will love it. Trust me. Thank you so much, Maryann. I feel blessed to have met you. All her links are listed underneath here. Like I said, go get her book. It's out this week, guys. Everybody go get it. Anyway, thank you.